Welcome, soul driven writers, to the Soul Writer Podcast. This podcast is designed for writers like you who have a burning desire to share their story and message with the world and make the biggest impact possible. I'm your host, Lauren Eckhart, bestselling author, ghostwriter, book coach, and the CEO of Burning Soul Collective. Here at the Soul Writer Podcast, we believe in the power of vulnerability and authenticity. Our mission is to inspire and empower you to write from the depths of your soul by showcasing other authors who have done exactly that. Through their journeys, you'll discover what it takes to write a book that truly resonates with readers and learn how you can embrace your own unique voice to live the writer's life that you've always imagined. So, gather your favorite writing tools, cozy up in your favorite spot, and let's explore the world of soul-driven writing together. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, where your passion meets purpose and the world awaits the magic that only you can create. Welcome to the journey. Welcome back to the Soul Writer Podcast. In today's episode, we will be taking a deeper dive into a couple of the topics that Dr. Emily Jacobs and I discussed during her interview from episode 4. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, I'd recommend going back and giving it a listen. But the ones that I want to dive deeper into is specifically the editing process. What we recommend when your book is going through the editing process, because there's a lot of information out there related to it. And we will talk about the ones that we've noticed works best at Burning Soul Collective. I also want to talk about the struggle that some people have when it comes to, okay, I want to share my story, but a big part of my story involves someone who has passed away. We've worked with, oh man, probably 6 different authors throughout the years who, someone who passed away was a big part of the story that they wanted to tell. So I want to give you some tips on how to navigate through that. But above all, I just can't stress enough is to really trust your intuition too and your gut. If something is saying that you shouldn't write this in a way that it's shared with the world, then don't. It's pretty easy. But like I always say, always write the truth for you first. Save that truth, and then you can edit it for the world later. So, those are the 2 primary topics we'll be talking about today. But I also want to briefly mention the writing the book in 30 days. Emily has said that she wrote her first draft of her book in 30 days using our 30-day nonfiction writing challenge program, which I absolutely adore the program. I think it's wonderful. I had a struggle with should I put out a program that's all about writing your book in 30 days? Because ultimately, even though I've been able to do it, I don't recommend it in the way, especially for brand new authors, which is a lot of what we tend to work with through Burning Soul Collective. Um, just because if you are writing a book for the first time, you really want to make sure that you are nailing all of the important elements of what makes a book good. And then additionally, when you are writing a really powerful book, like the majority of our clients are, you want that time for self-reflection to really think through things. It's the same reason why good therapy cannot be done in 30 days, right? Like it takes longer to process feelings, to really have them come up based off of things that we are going through in our own life. I mean, we get triggered throughout our days, and I'm not saying triggered in terms of like an emotional response, but in terms of memories. There are things that will come up in our memory based off of things that we're experiencing throughout the days that maybe we didn't think about in a long time. But when you start writing this book, it opens up the ability for those memories to come flooding back. But at the same time, it takes events living your life to trigger those memories to come back. So usually there needs to be a, pretty good length of time to have that occur. So, all that being said, can you still write a book in 30 days? Of course, Emily did. And it's a fantastic book. There's depth, there's emotion, there's connection, there's everything that you want for a powerful book. So, I just caution people though, because I don't want to set this expectation of, yes, you should absolutely be able to write your book in 30 days. Some people can, some people can't. And like Emily talked about, it really did put a stressor on other things in her life during that time. And a big part of why is because she didn't exchange one thing that she was doing for the other. So she just kept her plate full and then added on top of it versus taking something off during that time. So it's all about how you approach it as well. But I just like to put out that caution. I love our 30-day writing challenge because it's effective and it's teaching you how to write a book throughout. But I also don't want to put out this stigma of you have to write your book in 30 days. Like this is the way to do it. It's not always the case. So just a little clarity in that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the book editing process. So Emily had referenced working with our main editor, Allison, who Allison's been doing all of my books lately as well. And she's just great. She's wonderful to work with. She has a sharp eye. She's a thesaurus. And she really knows how to improve your book. Book editing is one of those, hands down, I don't care which publishing path you are choosing, traditional, hybrid, self-publishing, get your book edited. It is one of the best investments that you can make for your manuscript because it's going to make it better. It's going to make you more confident when your book is released, knowing that it has been improved, refined, and proofread through all of these different steps. There are several different types of editing, and honestly, different editors will refer to them in different ways. Like some will focus on line editing, some will focus on copy editing, but sometimes line editing can mean the same as copy editing. So when you start working with an editor, and I'll do a video down the road on how to find a good editor, I cannot stress enough the importance of clarifying what their services involve specifically, because there are slightly different definitions for every editor. So a big overview though, developmental editing is the most comprehensive form of editing. It focuses on the overall structure, content, style of the manuscript. It addresses things like plot development, pacing, character development, theme, narrative voice. It may involve things like reorganizing sections. The editor may suggest significant revisions. They might identify inconsistencies in the story. So usually this is the type of editing, developmental editing, that's done early on. It's like after you've reviewed the drafts of your manuscript multiple times, it's like the first editing that we recommend because it helps develop your story even more or your manuscript even more. Line editing focuses on more of the sentence level aspects of the manuscript. So essentially, it's ensuring that the writing is clear, concise, engaging. The editor is closely examining each line, and they're addressing issues such as word choice, sentence structure, tone. And line editing may also involve addressing issues with consistency and repetition. So, which I'm guilty of with repetition. So it's nice to have that done. Copy editing, however, it's a more technical form of editing, and it focuses on grammar, punctuation, spelling. Usually the editor is ensuring that the manuscript adheres to a consistent style, such as AP or Chicago manual style, especially if you have a lot of references. And it checks for consistency in terms of formatting, capitalization, and hyphenation. There also might be fact checking as part of the copy editing process, which is really good, especially for nonfiction books. And then proofreading is that final stage of editing before a manuscript is published. And it's truly this meticulous review of the text, focusing on any sort of errors that they see, formatting inconsistencies, minor mistakes that may have been overlooked during previous editing stages. So proofreaders work on the final formatted version of the manuscript to ensure that's error-free and ready for publication. So it's another very, very important one. And I will tell you, even though an editor is doing proofreading, the best thing that you can do is after they are done is still go through and proofread it yourself, because they are people, they're humans, and humans can make mistakes. So those are just kind of the overview of all of the different types of editing. At Burning Soul Press, what we do is developmental editing. So we have like these editing packages, and we do developmental editing, line editing, and then 2 rounds of proofreading. In between developmental editing and line editing, we also recommend using beta readers who are early readers of your manuscript, usually representing your target audience. And they are able to read it early with the purpose of providing you feedback to improve your book. So I'll do another video sometimes on beta readers specifically, because there's a whole process I recommend for that. Okay, so let's talk about then just some guidelines for writing about someone who has passed away. Because like I said, this comes up frequently with memoirs specifically. And there are just some things to be aware of because, writing about difficult topics or experiences involving other people, especially those who have passed away, can be a very sensitive and challenging endeavor. So the most important part is to always approach the subject with care, empathy, respect for both the individual and any of their loved ones. So one tip is just to be honest and authentic. Write truthfully about the experiences and emotions that you have encountered. Okay. This is the authenticity that will resonate with readers. Be mindful of the language you use and avoid exaggeration. I always tell people just stick with the facts. Do not persuade the audience to feel a certain way. Stick with the facts. Let them take whatever they may away from it. Okay. Show empathy and understanding always. Acknowledge the complexity of human emotions, of our experiences, and then always try to consider the perspectives of all parties involved and strive to portray them as fairly and as compassionately as possible. You want to be mindful of the privacy of the individuals involved, particularly if they are no longer able to consent to the sharing of their story. So you can look at things like changing their names, locations, other identifying details, so that you are able to protect their privacy. You can also look at seeking permission when appropriate. Seeking permission from family members or their loved ones, especially if the subject matter is sensitive or personal. Our author, Jennifer Hobbs, who we interviewed in episode 2, when she was writing her book, Calmed, she had to deal with the same thing because she had mentioned the life of one of her battle buddies who, had passed away and how it impacted her. So she actually received permission from the family and shared her writing with them before the book was published in order to, make sure it was okay to even write about her battle buddy. You want to focus on, really the personal growth and lessons that or learning that you're receiving from these interactions. So sometimes it's usually safer to really emphasize those lessons learned or the personal growth that resulted from the experience rather than dwelling on the negative aspects. Because by highlighting those positive outcomes, you can usually create a more balanced and constructive narrative anyway, which connects with the readers more instead of because sometimes there's a thin line where it almost sounds like complaining more than, okay, how do I use the situation to benefit who I am? You also want to use discretion. Be very mindful of the information you do choose to include in your writing. Okay. You want to consider whether that certain details are necessary for the story. So ask, if I was to leave these out, would it impact what I'm trying to deliver in the story? So is it unnecessary, especially if the inclusion of these details might hurt the loved ones who may read it? I kind of mentioned this before, but really maintaining that balanced perspective. So, it's acknowledging both the strengths and the weaknesses of the people that you do mention. So you really want to avoid more of those one-sided portrayals because we're not one-sided as human beings, right? By doing so, you're really negating the how complex we are, how complex that person is, and their experiences. And then, of course, you always want to consider the potential impact. Consider how it might impact their loved ones, their friends, and then always be prepared for a range of reactions, no matter what, because you're always going to get a range of reactions related to anything more emotional. And, you have to be open to discussing your writing then with those who may be affected or are affected. You also want to seek feedback. So try sharing your writing with, trusted friends, family members, or writing groups to get the feedback on the tone, the language, the sensitivity of how you're portraying these people, the person that you're writing about. This can really help you refine your writing and ensure that you are approaching the subject matter respectfully, because all of those people are going to have different experiences and they might take what you're writing in different ways. So it really helps for you to be able to gauge different reactions. And then always be prepared for emotions, because writing about difficult experiences involving other people can be emotionally challenging, both for you as the writer and, of course, for the readers as well. So you have to be prepared to process your own emotions and to support your readers as they navigate the complex feelings that your writing may evoke as a result. So just remember, that's part of diving in deep and pulling back those layers. You have to be prepared yourself, as like what we talked about with some of the like trauma recommendations from episode 3, but then also how your readers may be affected as well. So hopefully some of those tips help. We'll also do an episode on how to protect yourself on a legal front, because that's a question that comes up a lot too when you are writing about other people or revealing things in your own life. So we'll do a future episode about that, but hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Soul Writer Podcast. I hope today's conversation has ignited a newfound passion and determination in you to write from a place of vulnerability, authenticity, and soul. Remember, your story has the power to make a significant impact in the world. And by sharing your unique voice, you're contributing to the tapestry of human experience. So go forth, embrace your soul-driven purpose, and let your words transform the lives of your readers. Be sure to subscribe to the Soul Writer Podcast so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to share valuable insights and inspiring stories from fellow authors. You can also join our community on social media to connect with like-minded writers and share your own journey by looking at Burning Soul Collective. Until next time, keep shining your light, and remember, your story matters. Your words have power, and the world needs the magic that only you can create. This is the Soul Writer Podcast, signing off for now. Right on, my friends.